for the delay. I guess I have to explain myself right now. I'm not even in the UK right now. Right now, I'm in a different country. I'm in France. People are France. I'm with my boys. We had a holiday plan from the 7th to the 12th. And as I'm at Gatwick Airport, feeling very comfortable getting ready to board this flight, at Wagamama's as well too, I see the maddest news drop that Thomas Tuchel has been sacked. The way I feel gaslighted, honestly, the words can't even describe it. That is why things are late, because you guys know, news like this, I would never be this late at all. I'm on holiday, I'll do my best to still keep dropping content, so make sure you guys stay subscribed. But wow, there's so much to just break down and digest after today. Why was Tuchel sacked? What's happened between him and Todd BOEHLY? What's happened between Tuchel and the players? And what's happened with Tuchel himself? At this point in time, we are looking at replacements already, with Graham Potter being the main favourite now to sign for us. Currently at this point in time, him and his team are holding talks with Todd BOEHLY in London. Brighton seem okay to sell him as long as we meet their release clause valuation, which is between 10 to 60 million, with the reality likely being that he could be signed for 10 million pounds. So this is incredible. Things have happened so fast as well too, and wow, I need a bit of a break, but I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. And I guess for me to really start things off, I'll describe to you how I actually feel about the news. I'll be brutally honest. I don't feel upset, but I don't feel happy either. I just kind of feel, you know what I mean? I kind of feel like I've accepted it. And the reality is, when you're a Chelsea fan, and we've been down this route before of a manager going before he should have left. For me, it happened with Mourinho. It happened with Ancelotti, plus many others as well too. It's only natural that you get a bit desensitized afterwards. You know, I'm older now. I'm not as young as I used to be. It doesn't hit me as emotionally as it used to. But just because I don't feel nothing doesn't mean that I don't value this guy's work and I don't respect what this guy's done in terms of the football, in terms of helping us, find strategies against the big teams. We've traditionally struggled against them for many a season. Tuchel brought that back. He got us into cup finals. How many cup finals in consecutive seasons? And he won us the Champions League, as well as his conduct when the club was facing issues, of course, when we had the sanction period just a few months back. So these are the positives, and this is the legacy that Tuchel will leave. But at the same time, it doesn't take away from the criticism. And for me, I've always been a pros and cons type of person. And my criticism of Tuchel has come down to things I haven't seen improvements in. That is our lack of attacking threat, the lack of understanding with players being misprofiled and used out of positions, and sometimes in-game management decisions, which every manager, of course, is susceptible to. So for me, it's a pros and cons type of thing, but regardless, he leaves here with his head held high, at least. So that is how I currently feel about the sacking. Of course, it completely took me by the blue. But now let's talk about why he's been sacked. And unfortunately, I wish that I could have released this video right in the morning, because there was so much stuff I was hearing behind the scenes that, of course, I couldn't just put out in a video and do nothing like that. Listen, I got to be respectful of my platform. I'll let other outlets do that, and I'll discuss the news and stuff and give further insight afterwards. That's how I like to do things now. But I can say that a lot of reports that come out today have really been quite correct, and especially does kind of corroborate some of the things that I've been hearing as well too. And I think some of those things have come down to maybe Tuchel's personal life, maybe having a bit of an issue, of course not being in the right headspace, having a divorce. Of course, reports talking about the other partner he's seeing right now, and maybe how people in the dressing room might be seeing him a bit differently, etc, etc. That's only natural. I'm not going to judge him for that. He can do what he wants. That's not for me to judge anyone, to keep things absolutely real. But in terms of another major thing, that was the relationship between him and Todd BOEHLY. I heard after the Leeds game, when we lost to them, him and Tuchel haven't spoken since. And there's been so many examples of Tuchel maybe undermining BOEHLY and BOEHLY undermining Thomas Tuchel. Now, one of the infamous kind of quotes being, doing the rounds currently is BOEHLY wanting Ronaldo to come to the club and Tuchel being against it. Now, in my opinion, I think what's the difference between having Aubameyang and Ronaldo? I'm not too sure. And I guess Todd BOEHLY wants to get some assurances of, okay, you know, I know you don't want the player, but can you explain to me why? Do you have data? Like, what is the belief so I can understand? And I guess Tuchel, who could be feeling, listen, you gave me the keys. You trust my instincts and my opinions. If I tell you he's not the guy, I don't want to waste the time discussing why. I guess it's not necessarily the best way to start a relationship and to create that mutual understanding and that mutual trust, because you need to have that where you both trust each other, and you can trust when you can, of course, correct each other, etc., etc. And obviously, you're not going to create an environment like that if dialogue can't be that frank, open, and honest. And maybe Todd BOEHLY, listen, he's been super successful with his American franchises. I definitely trust this guy in terms of knowing exactly what a sports team needs to grow. And this guy's all about foresight. This guy's all about long-term planning. Hence why we spent the money we did signing the young players we did in this window. And the reality is, Tuchel, that's not really in his DNA. That doesn't mean that's a bad thing. It just means that he isn't a manager that really cares about youth. There's lots of managers that don't. You know, every manager is different. I see Tuchel as a tactician. He's a tactician in the sense where, you know, he gets off from tactically dominating his, his opponents and his opposition. And if you give him a experienced team of quality players, you know, who are, you know, kind of clock the game and in their prime, he will create a winning team that we've already seen brings results. Hence the multitude of cup finals we found ourselves in. But this will be an absolute contradiction to Todd BOEHLY, considering that he cares about the youth. He wants to see a plan in play over multiple seasons, and Tuchel wants to win now. And a lot of times with tactical managers, a lot of times they are after the stars. You know, they are after the trophies, the silverware. That is their philosophy. That is their mentality. That is their code basically behind their management. And I think on that code level, the code between Tuchel and BOEHLY just isn't compatible. And I think essentially that's why Todd BOEHLY decided today, I need to exercise anything and everything that was Roman Abramovich. And now that Tuchel ain't here, essentially this is like uncharted territory right now. This is Todd BOEHLY fully in control of the future of our club. And he's bringing in all the right people. We're having a sporting director coming in quite soon as well too, as well as a new manager, of course, to start building the club in Todd BOEHLY and his team's image. So listen, he paid the money for us. He's entitled. He is entitled to doing something like that. But, you know, to continue on as well too, I guess another troubling thing I heard too was the relationship with some of the players as well too. It did feel like maybe due to some of, you know, Tuchel's personals, maybe that's like interfering with his football. I was hearing things about him being a bit difficult, not only with the players, but also with Todd BOEHLY as well too. And listen, if both these guys aren't even holding dialogue this soon after the takeover, it's only a matter of time really until Tuchel's going to go, because Todd BOEHLY ain't going anywhere. And obviously in the terms of Trevor Chalobah, I told you guys this before, but I can tell you just brutally that's how it was. Todd BOEHLY went behind Tuchel's back and he said to Trev, listen, I don't really understand why Tuchel wants you to go. Tuchel was okay with him going. He was okay with Bro going because he didn't necessarily feel he could have been up to that level. He was more than happy with Gilmour leaving. He's shown since he has taken over, and this isn't a negative, but he has shown that youth is something he doesn't really care about, because his mentality is on winning trophies and getting that instant success, which I understand, but this isn't what we're trying to do at this club anymore. Under previous management, it made sense with your Marinas and co. They'd run all the footballing stuff. You just focus on the fields, training, tactics, etc., etc. But I guess right now, BOEHLY wants a manager that can be a little bit more, especially considering that he wants someone here for the long term, multiple seasons. And I just guess, you know, when you're showing that you're not necessarily the manager, BOEHLY feels can take younger players to the next level, can make them better, can make existing players better as well too. You got to see it from a business point of view. I mean, this guy spent hundreds of millions in this window to show his conviction behind the project. And if the manager's showing that he isn't necessarily the guy to take guys to new levels, that's going to get you questioning, why am I spending 70 million for Fana if we'll never be worth that type of valuation ever? And it's interesting because as this day has gone on, I'm even hearing about new things and reports, just as all of us are at this point in time. And when you're hearing about some of the training dynamics as well, maybe, you know, Tuchel showing frustration at the lack of understanding behind his principles. Of course, a point that he was absolutely furious after that 4-0 loss against Arsenal in pre-season, and was kind of in his thoughts a lot of times during that pre-season. I think we have to be real. He wasn't necessarily himself, and listen, it's not for me to judge and impose, but you'd imagine when you're going through something quite brutal like a divorce, I don't know what your mentals are going to be like and what your headspace is going to be like. So I can understand if maybe things were a little bit different, because we know when he first came, this guy was quite meticulous. And essentially, it does follow the same pattern in which he left Dortmund and the same pattern in which he left Paris Saint-Germain. And your colours do come out eventually. I think it's something maybe he has to work on maybe a little bit more at times, because when it's 3 times now, this is the same thing happening, in my opinion, it's not good. So I guess what's next? And 2 managers currently that have been spoken about are Pochettino, who, listen, in my opinion, I don't understand why he's been seen as the worst guy ever after his spell with Paris Saint-Germain. I mean, they still won things, but I guess they didn't win to the levels and caliber that Paris Saint-Germain, set their wins at. But that doesn't mean he was bad. I think essentially he kind of failed because Paris Saint-Germain aren't going to adopt the high pressing intensity that he had at Spurs. So I feel from a profile point of view, we have the guys in this team that could, of course, play that style of football. And I guess the main favourite at this point in time is currently Graham Potter. It seems like everything now is set. It seems like the money to actually pay for his costs to release it from Brighton, that's not even an issue or problem for us. We like Graham Potter, and I think it's quite obvious as to why, because not only is this guy a great tactician, and we've seen with Brighton some of the remarkable victories and points they've claimed. I mean, even last season against us, they outplayed us in both games. The way they just destroyed Man United, the way they're starting the season too. And this is a manager that doesn't have the luxury of having like 50, 60 million to spend on each position to add to his team every summer. This is a manager that, for me, does combine the best of both worlds. That is, being a tactician as well as being a coach. And you see that because at Brighton, he has a habit of making players better. Players become better under him. That's why Brighton flipped these guys on, because you have a manager like Potter that has the system in place, as well as the coaching skills and the man management to maximize a player's potential. And it's only common sense that if you're signing Casades, Chukwuemeka's, all these guys that, even when we had a midfield crisis under Thomas Tuchel, he still showed no signs of even giving them any minutes to come on and play. What is that giving you? What confidence is that giving you into the future? Not at all. If we're signing these guys, we need the coach to maximize them and make them the best they can be. That's not only for the young guys, that's for your Havertzes, that's for many players who I feel have stagnated under Thomas Tuchel, because you're forcing them to play roles that don't suit their core, that don't suit their influence in the game. And eventually, that is not sustainable. That will catch you out. And when Tuchel's showing no signs of adapting and making tweaks and really just shifting things, and then for me, I guess it's only fair that BOEHLY had every right to move him on, to bring in someone that's going to make his vision and dream come to life. And I have to say that I would definitely be okay with Graham Potter being my next manager, for the reasons I've just explained. So right now, I do want to give some of my closing thoughts. And yeah, I felt like when Tuchel first came, that game versus Wolves, at the time I heard that I already knew the lineup for like a week and a bit in advance. Tuchel already knew what type of team he was going to play. It was interesting that all the senior guys were instantly brought back into the team, and all the young guys were instantly kicked out of that team. And I guess maybe that was giving us our first early glimpses and signs of how Tuchel saw the guys and just his preferences and his own personal opinions as a manager. But he did admirably well to cover the cracks, to make us successful and to make us compete. Knowing the fact that he had literally like barely any contract lengths into his deal, to give him that stability, that feeling of, okay, I'm in an environment I can cultivate and stay in for a while. Massive credit goes out to him. But I guess those cracks were never really healed and never really fixed. They always remained. We've seen it time and time again in terms of how we've struggled against teams that sit back and park the bus. We have no solutions. We have no options. We've seen it time and time again in terms of how we've used a multitude of different attacking combinations and number 9s to absolutely no avail. You know, these cracks are unsustainable ones, and eventually they cost him his job, unfortunately. Once you're figured out by your opponents, you guys, this is the highest level, we forget. It's the highest level. Teams will find you out in literally a handful of games. If you're not adapting, that will cost you. And the funny thing is, a lot of times people discuss the quality of league, and that my actual take is that maybe Tuchel's football works more in leagues like Ligue 1 and leagues like the Bundesliga. For example, using the Bundesliga, teams don't traditionally sit back and defend like they do in the Premier League. I'm always stressing that point. We always laugh at the Bundesliga due to the space that opens up, but that makes more sense for that positional style play, because then you can kind of trick your opponents into like coming to your press and then playing around that. But in the Premier League, where, you know, managers are under pressure like crazy, there's so much financial incentive to make sure that, you know, clubs are still competing and earning revenue and keeping those positions in places. It forces incredibly fierce tactical battles, and a lot of times coaches are more than happy with their team stifling opponents, keeping compact blocks and not leaving their positions to press. And this is where the football and the strategy from Tuchel kind of collapsed, and he wasn't really able to find the solutions to tweak things to play through that. It's unfortunate, but I think it's quite interesting. There's definitely a discussion with that one. But for me, I mean, even though we've had some massive highs in the Tuchel, we still had luck and we still had some lows. We all know the lows, there's no point me discussing them. And I guess for other ones as well too, I say things like, even when we secured Champions League football in that season under him, you know, we were relying on Tottenham in the end to get us to that place. So, you know, the cracks have always been present and they've always remained. But for me though, I always understood that if he had more time to build the squad in his image, which I was consistently saying, then I can fully judge, really understand what the master plan is. And I feel like he was definitely back to this window a lot, had a lot more influence than most managers will ever get in their lifetime. And in the end, nothing really changed. Players that have been signed haven't really elevated us in that sense. And it does kind of feel like when you're literally going through players left, right and centre for fun now, for me, the only solution must be is that the system they're playing in might not be absolute levels that it originally used to be, because time moves on and teams understand you. You know, Todd Boehly didn't spend $4 billion for nothing. He has a vision here, and there's a reason why he's been waiting in the shadows to find the right opportunity to sign us. And it makes sense, because in terms of his philosophy and vision for sports teams, we do suit that. We do have all the foundations in place there, especially with our emphasis on developing incredible youth. And, you know, you kind of need to buy into that. It was the same thing with Roman before. With every owner, you have to buy into their vision. And I guess in the end, him and Tuchel couldn't meet eye to eye, and Tuchel had to go. So you guys, that's my thoughts and opinions behind the stories today. Emotional day. I know a lot of you guys will be very upset by Tuchel going. You've got every right to feel upset as well too. And let's just see what the future brings. With this football club, I honestly, like the stories, the headlines, it's never ending. It will always catch you out, as I learned the hard way myself today. So you guys, now I'm going to wrap things up, keep things moving. Thank you for watching. I'm in EFC, this is BlueLionsTV. Catch you guys later with some more videos.